Hamer Hall is now coming up to being 30 years old, and technology and so on changes so rapidly that these buildings need to be kept up to date and contemporary. There are areas backstage that need significant upgrade, but perhaps the area that we're most excited about are the public spaces. It can take 30 minutes to empty the auditorium after a performance, which is way outside kind of modern expectations for managing audiences. We need much better facilities for things like bars and function rooms.
These buildings, which were built as kind of art forts, they need to be opened up. They need to be able to be used in the morning, in the afternoon.
We were very fortunate that government made a commitment of $128.5 million to complete the redevelopment of Hamer Hall. I think there was a great fear when we first announced that we were refurbishing Hamer Hall that all of those interiors would get pulled out and be replaced by modern decor. So we've worked very hard with the architects and designers and so on to ensure that we could retain as much as possible of the original Truscott interiors.
So what we've been charged to do is actually to rethink the building from its origins and now how to sort of project it into the next, the 21st century. So it's quite a tricky rebirth, you might say, because we are actually quite dramatically changing the building. And yet in some areas you'll walk through and say, oh, it just looks like it always looked like. But in behind all of the retained Truscott decoration and interiors and the whole auditorium is actually a whole new infrastructure and hard wiring.
We spent approximately $500,000 in protecting as much as we could of Hamer Hall. It had to remain. That included the leather walls, ceilings, floors, wherever it was deemed as a heritage item.
One of the interesting things about Hamer Hall was that it had two different designers. So it started under Roy Grounds and then was finished off by Truscott. So you had this really interesting kind of clash between two very different aesthetics. Which is part of the real character of the building.
So our whole design direction has been to, I guess, take what Truscott was thinking about in response to what Grounds was thinking about and sort of research it, analyse it, and then from that, take that and give it a sort of new energy and bring it up to the contemporary.
A major part of the demolition was along the riverfront, which was the old dark concrete structure. We decided to go with the 40-tonne excavator with the jaws, which enabled us to crush a lot of the concrete. We have taken out approximately 4,000 tonne of concrete, 1,500 tonne of structural steel. We endeavoured to recycle as much as we possibly can. All the concrete that is removed will be recycled. The structural steel will be recycled and melted down.
Although Hamer Hall was closed down and is closed down for the reconstruction, we're very mindful of other stakeholders, be they residents, people in the theatres building, and all of the other activities that happen in the precinct while we're constructing for 2 years.
One of the things I've always loved about Hamer Hall is that it's always had that kind of cavernous feel to it. And indeed, if you look at the finishes on the walls inside the hall itself, they've been scenic painted to look like layers of rock. We are doing quite a number of changes on the walls, but our intention is to return them back to that original feel.
We've essentially extended Truscott's treatment of Grounds concrete walls around the whole auditorium, and that's all done by the scenic artist who actually painted the original scenographic work, so that was great that he was able to come back and do that 30 years later.
We're invited by John Truscott to come and have a look at a project at the Arts Centre. He'd just arrived from America and it was full of grandiose ideas. We started in the Hamer Hall project and we're back there again now, recreating exactly the same as what we did back then.
First time it was a construction site instead of a demolition site, so it was a little bit quieter, and the designer was there for us too all the time.
So it's rather exciting to have the original team from 30 odd years ago back on the project, and we're, between us all we can sort of still remember the processes we went to and the colours we used. So this is John Truscott's original coloured pencil lines.
Well, it's predominantly a series of 4 or 5 colours from the opal lines that John Truscott had chosen originally, and we luckily enough had tiny little droplet samples still 30 years later to match off some of the old blueprints. We line it with brushes and then we come back and spray the overlaps of colour to get the opal type effect. And the best achievement was to do it with a spray equipment. Yeah, it's just a matter of making it pleasing to the eye. I think we're achieving it. It's pretty good. It's just an achievement that you can stand back and look at something such a big scale and think, oh, glad I got that right up there because can't get back up there again, you know.
I think what's really impressed me is the way we've retained the heritage of the old building, the best of the old, and modernised it with better air conditioning, better acoustics, better accessibility and better amenity. So this is a blending of the old and the new to give a magnificent concert hall for Melbourne and Victoria.
The issue of universal access obviously is critical to all public buildings, and in principle what that might mean is that everyone arrives at the same front door. You know, everyone has the same experience when they enter the foyer. Everyone moves through the building in as close as possible in the same way. We've also introduced a new 24/7 lift. On the northeast corner, so a very prominent corner, we've got this beautiful sculptural tower that houses the lift and houses the path up and down to St Kilda Road. In the existing condition, the escalators actually started at the stalls and then finished one level below the ground floor, which meant that everyone who was using those would have to hop off, find their way to a lift or something else to continue up.
It was decided to put 6 new escalators through the building. Once they were in the building, they had to be lowered down the bottom escalator 3 floors into the building and work our way back out.
The hall sits in a prime location on the river, but up until now it's really turned its back to that area, and in fact once you're in the building you have no sense of where you are in relation to the river. So a large part of the redevelopment is about addressing that.
The whole interaction with the city is going to be so different, it's going to be so amazing, and plus with the new technology in the auditorium and the new acoustic feel for the auditorium, it's going to be quite a magical sort of space, quite a different thing to what it is now, and certainly quite different to what it is under construction.
In the construction industry, you work on a lot of mundane buildings. Hamer Hall in itself is a very iconic building in Melbourne. It's great to work on, gives you great satisfaction and pride to be involved with such a building.
I think all of us involved in this project are very pleased at the way we're able to get a huge amount out of the project for the available budget. So all signs are looking good for a fantastic outcome for the people of Victoria.